So I have a lot of things that I want to talk about with you today, but just starting with Infuri, why the decision to re-record this album?
I was never happy with the original. We recorded the original in like days or something. Pretty ridiculous. I think it took like a little over 2 weeks to like complete, and it just sounds rushed, and I have it in my power to re-record it. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well, you certainly have that. Were there any, there was a lot of changes around this time too. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about sort of what happened between End of an Era and Path of Apotheosis, and also kind of why there were some big changes to the roster of the band.
Right. Well, when we recorded the End of an Era, like 2008 is when we recorded it. We were signed to a record label. I don't really like to bring up their name, but we were signed to a record label. They didn't like the record, so they dropped us, and that kind of threw the band into a spiral. At the time, also playing in a band called Discreet from Topeka, Kansas at the time too. So I ended up playing more with Discreet as Inferi went on hiatus for a little bit after we recorded End of an Era. That the title of the album is actually not the actual title that we're going to call it. We're going to call it The Ruin of Mankind. After the first track on the album, once we went on hiatus, we cut the End of an Era.
Sounds appropriate.
Yeah. So a few years go by, decide to start up the band again. And at that time, the other guitar player stopped playing. Our drummer, Eric W. Brown, later failed math. He moved, so we had to change up the lineup a little bit. So I've always been friends with the guys in Info Darkness. So I reached out to Mike Lowe, took his place in Info Darkness when he quit that band.
Yeah, I've been noticing as I've been sort of watching the band rosters between a lot of these kind of interrelated tech death and prog death bands. There's a lot of I don't know if you call it inbreeding almost, or it reminds me too of when you have groups of friends in high school and college, and everyone starts dating each other, and by the end everybody's been around the block.
Death metal incest, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to find players, man, that want to do it and who are actually willing to make sacrifices to make things work. So yeah, I reached out to Mike and he was down. Then we recruited Jack Blackburn, who was also in Info Darkness, as our drummer for the Path of Apotheosis. And we kept the same bass player and vocalist from End of an Era. And during the process of recording Path of Apotheosis, our drummer had to move to Texas, death in the family, and he recorded drums down there. Our bass player at the time, he moved to Georgia during the process of recording. And then the vocalist got married and had some kids, so we're kind of just left with me and Mike in the band.
That'll do it too.
So yeah, by the time we got the record out, it was basically just me and Mike in the band.
Wow.
So a couple years go by, ended up joining a band called Enthios.
Damn, dude, you've been in every band.
Yeah, I get around, I guess. So I joined them for a little bit. I wasn't in the band too long, maybe 7 months or something.
Okay. Are you on any of the albums?
I'm on the first full length, not the EP, the green and red one. I forgot the name at this moment.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I just remember the purpley one was the last one.
The one right before that one.
Okay.
But I joined late. They're already in the process of finishing up the album when they made the guitar change. So I did I think all the leads except for 2 or 3 on that album, and then we did a couple tours and decided to part ways. So once that happened, I just started writing some new Inferi material, and we really decided that make the band a touring band. We wanted to do that before, but it just kept falling apart. So we decided to keep on Jack just for the recording, because he already committed to it, and we found a sick drummer here in town. That's one of the most important pieces in a death metal band to me is solid drummer. So we need it in town. And then we recruited Joel, and he lived in or still lives in Indiana. And the vocalist Sam was in the band with the new drummer that we had called Animality at the time. And he's a really sick vocalist. So we decided to, give it a shot and see what this lineup could do. And that was the lineup of Revenant. Once that album came out, was that last year? We did a bunch of tours.
It was one of my favorites of the year.
Thanks, man.
Righteous album.
Really proud of the album.
Yeah.
Cool things about the album I like, and there's a lot of stuff I don't like.
Well, now I'm curious. What don't you like about it?
It's a little dense.
Okay.
There's a few songs in there. There's like 20 riffs in it for no reason. You know what I mean?
They flow surprisingly well, though. Like, that was something that really caught my ear about that album, and that kept me replaying it, was that I am that type of person who does get like overwhelmed and bogged down by an album that just seems to, I don't know, kind of insist upon itself in its own technicality. But the more just kind of pure melodic death metal elements and just the songwriting in general allows it to just stay engaging. So I don't think of that as a super dense album, but hey, you wrote it, so
yeah. Once we got the tab book put together, like 300 something pages, it's like, oh shit, there's a lot going on. The whole goal of that album was to kind of make a journey, like with the lyrics and everything. It all has a meaning. Every song is about a ring in the circle of hell and all that stuff. So it was meant to be dense, but I didn't realize how dense it was going to be until way after it was out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get so involved in something, and you listen to it every day.
Yeah.
And then once it's out, then you can like breathe, and then you come back to it and you're like, oh shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
But hit touring pretty hard last year. A couple of the members weren't able to make it out to the tours. Say, Joel's in college, becoming an engineer, and
how dare he? Make something of himself.
Real job. And Sam does engineering, audio engineering here in town, and has a lot of clients and stuff like that. So he wasn't able to tour as often either. He did one tour with us. So we had fill-ins pretty much the whole year. And from the very first tour we did with Andrew and Stevie, it was just like pure chemistry. Like, we all got along and fought, griped about anything, which is really hard to come by in a band, especially when you're cramped up in a van and you don't have like the commodities of a bus or, shit like that. So as time went on, we kind of knew that it was probably best for the band's future to stick with the guys that all got along, who were equally as great players as their previous members, but able to tour and willing to, make the sacrifices to stay on the road. And that's kind of the breakdown of all the lineup changes that we've had over the years in a nutshell.
Yeah.
A little complex, but hopefully we'll have this lineup for quite some time. Another reason we thought it was the right time to do End of an Era again was because we had this brand new lineup, and we just felt like the time was right since we're touring.
Yeah,
we wanted to give all of our newer fans a perspective of our older music that they've probably never touched before, now with like better production and all that stuff.
Is there something is there like a big change you would describe between the sound of Revenant and this?
Well, Stevie's vocals are very different from Sam.
I definitely noticed that right off the bat.
I think Stevie's vocals are very similar, or more similar to our original vocalist than Sam's vocals. The tuning is different from the original on Rebirth. So we're playing in the same tuning from Path and Revenant as we are in Rebirth. So the songs are a little darker and timbre and all that stuff. And there's a lot of little different changes, small little bits of flavor that people notice on drums and the bass that definitely weren't there on the original. I tried to keep the guitars pretty much spot on the same, just to kind of hold up the foundation of the album. All the vocal patterns are basically the same, but it's quite an overhaul. I think the album sounds better as far as audio mix and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Well, not to bury the lead, but yeah, I mean, like when I first got the promo and I saw kind of like reissue, I was originally just going to pass on it because I just don't normally cover that. But then I saw, actually fully re-recorded with the new lineup and everything, and I pressed play on it, and I have not stopped listening to it since I started. And man, it's just fucking amazing. Like, this is definitely so far one of my favorite albums of the year. It's hard to compare it to Revenant. Like, I just feel like they're just very different albums, especially like the vocals definitely stood out. They feel a little bit more kind of blackened is the way I put it this time around, a little more higher pitched kind of screechiness to it. And then just the approach to the riffs just feels a little bit different too. But like, I love both albums, and that's something that really excited me, is I like when a band continues to kind of keep their foundation but somehow make it sound fresh each time, and even more so given that this is a re-recording of an older album, and yet somehow it feels brand new.
Yeah, it's we did it. Another reason we did it is it's the 10-year anniversary of the album.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of all the stars aligned to make it actually work. But yeah, I mean, those riffs are pretty old. I think they still hold up.
Definitely.
To a certain standard. I think people will enjoy it, or at least appreciate it for what it is. It's definitely not going to be the route that we take on our next studio album, but like I said, I just wanted people to,
get a
gaze
taste
through the window of our past,
Yeah. Anything you want to share about that, about directions moving forward?
Yeah, we've got quite a bit written, but there's not a lot of like fully developed songs. It's mostly just an entire folder full of like mostly like 2-minute ideas, and we keep piling them on. I've always liked to write more than we actually need for an album. Typically to the point where we could probably write 2 albums from all the material and then just chip away and trim the fat.
Yeah.
I'm not really one to like get rid of riffs. So whatever we don't use, we recycle and repurpose for, newer songs. For instance, the first song on Revenant was actually a song that was going to go on Inferi Era. A lot of the riffs anyway. So some of the riffs in that are like 10 years old.
Wow.
But yeah, the new stuff, there's going to be some differences, but we're trying to basically just refine our sound more. We want to have a little bit more progressive elements to it, but still, retain our style and our sound. I want it to be our heaviest album, because we haven't really done anything to me that's like been heavy. It's mostly just fast and technical, but I want it to have its dynamic value. I want the dynamic range to be higher than our previous albums. So more diversity, and yeah, I don't know if we're gonna go faster.
I don't know if you can go faster. Maybe you can. I don't know. So obviously you've got to be insanely busy, because you're doing Inferi, you're in charge of the Artisan Era, and what all bands are you considering yourself an active member of right now?
Actively, basically just Inferi.
Okay.
I guess technically I'm always active in Loathing Requiem, but it's not really an active project.
I didn't even know you were the one doing that. These connections I'm not even making until later. That means, that's funny, because that means we've corresponded before via email and messages. You're apparently a hard person to track. There's just too much going on. So Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I get a lot of shit, so
Yeah.
sometimes I just stay in tunnel until the task is done. Whatever pops up next in my vision, or
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and then you also, I mean, just a couple episodes ago, I talked to Nick from Equipoise, or Equiopoise as the meme is now. But so you were involved, obviously, there, it's on your label, and you were involved in recording that too. And I was kind of interested just hearing Nick's story as he kind of put it, just being this Joe Schmo who just reached out to these people he really respected and forming this band and this record. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what was your experience of, like, hearing from Nick and ultimately deciding to get involved with that?
I saw the potential for a really cool album, a really cool project. I've known Stevie for a really long time, and seeing him do vocals on that project is, I think, the reason I checked it out to begin with. And then, of course, Hugo's playing bass. I don't know, I just saw it was really cool. Had a lot of potential from the beginning. But when he reached out to us, it was kind of at the perfect time, because at that point, I think we had just gotten the Virulent Depravity album out. It's too far away, too far back for me to remember. But I think we just got that album out, or about to release it, or something like that. It was really when we were trying to expand and grab more bands. And I felt like that was the type of project that would fit great on the label. And it's been awesome seeing him work at it and get all these guys in to make a killer album, especially with Chasen on drums. Definitely top tier in the genre. So it's been cool. It's a really sick album.
Yeah, it came out really great, and just it's been making the rounds. My understanding, it's been doing pretty darn good numbers in terms of sales and streams and everything too. So Nick, I'm really impressed with Nick too, because he just seems like a really hardworking, highly motivated guy who's just constantly hustling, constantly marketing this shit, like, any way that he can, and it's paying off.
Definitely. That was one of the things too. When I first started talking to Nick, I saw that. You know what I mean? It's kind of rare to see in bands.
Yeah.
Try to do the band thing. They don't put as much effort as he's putting into, this project, which says a lot.
Yeah.
About other bands and him. So I'm proud of him. I see a lot of his ambition and drive that I saw in my younger self, and something I can appreciate for sure. I respect him a lot.
Totally.
Even though I do shit.
Well, you gotta haze a little bit. You can't make it too easy. So it just seems like this is shaping up to be a really huge year in general for the Artisan Era, between Equipoise and this Inferi re-release, and then you've got the new fucking Warforged album, or I should say the Warforged album that everybody's been waiting for forever. And I've spent the last 3 or 4 days listening to that, and once again, like, totally blown away. Those guys did not disappoint me. I've been listening to their singles since like 2015, I think, when Two Demons came out, and have been just, the hype train's been growing, and it's so rare for a band to actually be able to pull off meeting that hype after so many years, but they fucking did it.
Incredible. It's like mind-blowingly good.
Yeah, and when you were talking about, Dynamics, that was the album that came to mind too, because that album is just all over the place. It's just a completely different monster than any of the other bands that we've talked about so far, really, because it's just, I feel like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't even know.
Yeah,
Maybe you
I think
can.
it's a masterpiece. I think it's a true masterpiece, man. It's I don't know. There's a vibe with the album that when you listen to it, like all the songs run into each other and create this entire story, and not just like lyrically, but musically, it feels like you're in a dream. They did it perfectly.
Yeah, that's a good way of
And
putting it.
they I hope they get the response that they deserve. This is going to be their mark on the world for their presence.
Yeah,
So
I hope so, and I think so. My plan is to get them in here to talk about it and do an episode because there's so much to discuss on that record as well. And also, if I'm not mistaken, they're out of Chicago, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm originally from there, so there's a little bit of a Chicago pride going along there. It's always nice to see
nice.
see good bands come out of
I
your
was born in
hometown.
Chicago. I was born in Chicago.
Oh, really?
So
Okay. Yeah, northwest suburbs. But I went to college all around downtown.
nice.
Great city, but the weather is awful, and so we got out of there.
Yeah, I moved when I was pretty young. We lived in the south side of Chicago. It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
We were able to get out when I was like in first grade or something.
Yeah, definitely some rough areas. Rough times going on
Yeah.
right now. So, all right. So, Equipoise and Inferi, Warforged. You just also announced the new Inanimate Existence is coming out soon.
Right.
Been a big fan of those guys. I have not heard anything from that album yet.
I think it's their best. I used to think their second album was their best one,
Which one is that? I lose track.
Atonement.
What's on the cover of that one?
It's a big blue and pink mountain.
Oh, okay. I think
Yeah.
again these I've been listening to so much stuff lately that I'm starting to lose track.
Oh man, I do it all the time.
Too much
Yeah,
coming out.
their album's really sick. Yeah, I hope you get a chance to get your ears on that.
Oh, I definitely will. I'm just waiting for it to show up in my inbox is all. So as soon as that happens, it'll be in my rotation, and God knows how long it'll be there. I've really honestly, I have to keep up an enormous pace to just keep up with all the stuff that comes through, and so I only have I'll keep an album in rotation for just like a day or two, maybe 3 on average. But with the stuff that's coming out of your label, it sits there for like 3 weeks. I just can't get rid of it, which is a good thing. But it's slowing me down a little bit. So stop putting out so much good stuff, I guess. So, I mean, with all that, again, it just brings me back to like how busy are you? Because you're handling all this stuff with all these bands, with the label, and then you're gearing up for this tour. You've been recording for multiple bands.
As far as recording bands, that's typically Mike's end. I did some solo parts like with orchestration, but yeah, it's mostly taking care of the label stuff at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's no time for rest.
Yeah, I don't imagine so. I mean, is it worth it? Are you happy kind of where you're at right now?
It's a labor of love. Sure. I definitely love it. It's a passion for me. I had a huge snake collection. I used to breed ball pythons, and I think a couple months ago, before it got cold, I ended up having to move my collection to a buddy's house and have him take care of that. So I had to get out of that business.
Jeez.
Just because the label and the band are doing so much. So yeah, man, I mean, I definitely love what I'm doing. And it's really humbling to see it grow and see the fan base grow for bands that, people haven't heard of before and get to discover them.
Yeah.
That's really rewarding for me. So yeah, we do our best.
Yeah, and it means a lot. Like, I really respect a label that has people behind it who you can tell they genuinely love the music. They genuinely enjoy the bands that they're signing. It's important to them that they feel like they're kind of furthering not only the scene, but sort of just music in general.
Right.
I am curious, though, like with the music business kind of being what it is right now, does it pay the bills?
it pays for itself. I mean, yes and no.
Like it's self-sustaining, but it doesn't leave a lot outside of that.
Yeah, yeah. We pretty much invest everything right back into our bands and our growth. So haven't really paid ourselves for the label just yet. We just put it all back into the growth process. That's really the main focus for us right now is growing and being able to accommodate that growth and rinse and repeat for the moment.
So what do you do to keep a roof over your head then?
I do various things. A lot of people, pay me to do like some graphic design stuff or, record other things for them. And without my snake collection, I used to make most of my money from snake collection, like breeding snakes and selling them to customers and all that stuff like that. So I'm in the swing of figuring things out with that. But, we do pretty well when we go out and tour. So that helps a lot. We've been lucky to have a really solid fan base for the band. And it's been great. It's all a matter of making it work.
Yeah. Well, again, like that just makes me appreciate all the more what you're doing. Because there's some really great labels out there, but there's also some that just feel kind of predatory and like they just are doing it just because it's a business, and it just doesn't feel that way with, especially, I mean, when you put out such a strong series of albums, right. Clearly you're doing something right. So thank you for that.
Oh man, thank you for enjoying what we do. Hopefully we can continue moving forward. I think we're on the right track for sure.
As we're talking, it's just occurring to me, I've been sort of navigating this just with the website and with the podcast and developing and expanding and trying new things and just sort of trying to evolve with sort of how the digital space has been changing. I don't know if you've ever thought about like, your label's high enough profile that, could you do like, in addition to, merch and the traditional stuff, having like a Patreon or what's the other one? The Star something, I don't know, some sort of like subscription service.
Yeah, I've discussed this with Mike before, and I don't know because I feel like a lot of times the metal community shits on that really hard.
Well, yeah, it makes me think of Allegion, or I always forget how to pronounce their name. There was that big blow up where they wanted like to basically salary themselves through Patreon.
Nea Obliviscaris and
did they do Legion it too?
Did that?
Allegion. There you go.
Yeah, both of those bands, they're doing well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Patreon.
My opinion is if the fans are willing to do it, then fuck what everybody else says. I mean,
right.
You got to make a living, and if they're willing to do that, I don't know, more power to them.
Right, for sure. I think it's a positive thing as a musician. I think it's just mostly salty musicians.
Oh, yeah.
And that don't have the fan base to support that idea. Maybe there's a little jealousy there. I don't know. And a lot of pride. But I don't know. I would like to think of it, more in the future for us, maybe. Do a lot of research and figure out how to make it work and make it worth it for the people who are
subscribing. Yeah. Well, if you figure it out, let me know, because I'm still trying. I'm still trying to figure it out. But you've got a much, much broader fan following to work with, which is, I mean, that's really just where you start. If you've got, the people who know you, and you've got the word of mouth, and you have the avenues to reach a large number of, regularly, that will get you started from the very beginning. And it's harder and harder to do that now because they keep throttling all the social media stuff in terms of kind of more business oriented stuff. It just doesn't have the same reach that it used to.
Right. Especially Facebook.
Yeah.
New algorithms they're using. They're just not focusing on making it easy for people.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because like I'm so used to posting there, so that still is kind of like I've diversified out onto all the other platforms, but that's still kind of like the first place I go just because I grew
It's the
up
big
on
one.
it. And
Yeah.
but I'm every time I do it though, I'm kind of kicking myself because I'm like, nobody's even gonna fucking see this. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah,
I'm
you basically
interested to,
have to pay
yeah,
to post,
yeah,
on a business format.
yeah. I started toying around with Minds.com because they've got this whole thing where you like earn tokens for posting and then you can use
Right.
that to like boost your posts and stuff. It's kind of interesting, but there's
I've heard
still,
about that.
yeah.
I saw the guy on Joe Rogan,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
CEO. Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was
he's
what
like,
made me jump onto it actually. I'm interested in, getting involved in that now and seeing other, people either from labels or bands getting involved now because you can kind of corner the market because if you search like metal related hashtags, there's like nothing
right,
right now. So
right.
early adapters, if this thing sticks around and people hop onto it, it could be a good thing. But I'm really interested to see what happens in the next 5 years or so, if there even is like eventually everything kind of falls down. I mean, you look at MySpace
Right,
was huge and now it's basically nothing and
right.
if everything changes.
I'm sure Facebook will be the old MySpace at one point as far
Yeah,
as,
it already
promoting
kind of
things.
is.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Completely slipped my mind to look into that. So I think I will.
Yeah. What else? I did, I had a direct question from Dan too. He wants to ask, why have you not signed the Hudson Horror to the Artisan Era?
The Hudson Horror?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I heard the Hudson Horror.
Oh snap! All right, shots fired right there.
If I
Yeah, they're
have,
they're kind of on hiatus right now. Anyways, he's working
uh,
on another project that I'm gonna be talking with him about. But they're like a melodic death metal band, some kind of blackened vibes too. I like it.
literally my inbox, especially
Oh,
hundreds of
I'm sure.
messages,
Yeah, I'm sure it's
and
insane.
sending us YouTube links and shit, and it's
Yeah,
hard to keep up with.
yeah. And
So
I can relate to that, although I'm sure it's like 10 times worse for you. But on the other hand, like it's great that you have that level of engagement, that people
yeah,
are that interested in joining with you specifically.
right. Yeah, I'm happy about it. It's just hard to keep up with.
He also was curious. He had this idea in his head that at some point Inferi were signed with Sumerian. Is that true?
Yeah,
Oh, that is
yeah,
true. Okay. What
yeah.
was
That
that?
was
What was
that was
that
the
like?
label we parted ways with for End of an Era.
Hmm.
So got a lot of mixed feelings about. It was an interesting experience, that's for sure, and definitely eye opening in a lot of ways when you're young and naive, trying to be a musician and want to get signed. Um, and part of the reason why I started my own shit, if that says anything.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I hear that story over and over with any number of labels. There's a lot of music Sumerian puts out that I really like, but I do always wonder about like these bands I hear that later on they get off it and then they finally can like sort of speak their mind about what was going on and that they didn't really understand the contracts and that again like it brings back that word predatory.
Yeah, that I hear that story a lot too. There's a lot of things that wanted from us that we weren't willing to give them. Just how they wanted the band to display itself, and
Oh,
you know change of names and all this other stuff. It just didn't end up
image
working.
related stuff. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
good for you for artistic integrity, man. It means
yeah,
something. Although I also respect a band that like if they can get their big payday and it's working for them, if that's what they want to do, I'm for that too, whatever.
yeah. I mean, if we were to continue with them back then, I don't think we would be the same band that we are today because we were so fucking young. Um, could have been easily changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, also,
Uh,
the Artisan Era probably wouldn't exist, and you wouldn't have this amazing roster of musicians. Oh.
Definitely true. Very highly likely. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say everything happens for a reason, but the fact that that did happen is the reason Artisan Era exists.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's the way I always look at it. It's not that everything happens for a reason. It's that you take anything that happens and you bring some sort of meaning to it that pushes you
right,
forwards. Like I think that's sort of the trick to almost everything, really.
yeah. When life gives you lemons, you
Yeah,
make lemonade, right?
exactly. That whole thing. The whole, glass half full, all that bullshit, but it's true.
Yeah, it's life. Life is a crazy fucking ride, man.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else you want people to know about, the album, the upcoming tour, things you want to specifically plug for people to know?
So at this point, we'll probably announce another band on the label.
Ooh,
We are Wednesday. We're going to announce Flub on the label,
flub.
which is
Okay.
yeah, Michael Alvarez from Ultra Beast and Jarrett Klein from Rivers of Nile have a band together.
Oh, hell yeah.
And have a sick ass album that we're going to release for them summer. And we announced Singularity. That stuff's going to come out in the summer as well. And there's like 3 or 4 more bands that we're going to announce within the coming months. The year's packed full.
Damn,
of
dude, yeah.
great shit.
I gotta start
So-
saving. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just went on the website and bought 3 albums, but then I was looking ahead and I'm like, fuck, I gotta I gotta plan ahead because there's a lot of shit.
We're trying to space some things apart, have different kinds of releases in between our band releases, like cool reissue vinyls and stuff like that. But for the rest of the year, yeah, we're on 100% pedal to the floor.
I can't wait.
Can't wait, man.
Yeah. One last question. I usually ask people for like another underground band that they'd like to shout out, but I think I want to change it for you. I want to ask you if you could sign any band, like the dream band that you would want on the Artisan Era, what band would that be?
Oh man, that's tough. This might not come to people who listen to this, but I'm gonna go with Necrophagist.
All right. That's a good one.
That's one of the bands that like literally changed my perspective on music. So it really like kind of changed my life mentally when it comes to that. So I'd love to work with on an album, and they definitely wouldn't need us to. They could get any label. That'd be cool for me.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to tag them when this goes up. I'll throw down the gauntlet. I think you're busy enough already, but it seems like you're willing to take on pretty much anything at this point.
Yeah, man, going all the way.
All right. Any final notes?
Not really, man. I really appreciate you having me on. Anyone who's listening in a band and they're trying to fucking do their shit, man, just keep going.
Yeah.
Persevere through it and make the sacrifices to make it happen, because it's not going to happen easy. And
Nope.
No one's going to give you shit. So work that ass off.
You got to, especially just in music. Nothing, everything with hard work. All right. Well, even more so thanks to you. I'm just a schmo with a computer who writes about other people's music all day long and acts like I have a valid opinion on it. You're out there fucking doing your thing and writing all this stuff and putting bands out there. So thank you for that. And thank you so much for giving me all this time. I'm really excited to share it with everyone and see, what the reaction is. But I think it's going to be very positive.
I hope so, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk some shit.
Yeah, man. Anytime. All right, once again, that was Malcolm Pugh of Inferi and the Artisan Era Records. Inferi's The End of an Era Rebirth is out April 12th. of course, via the Artisan Era. I highly recommend picking it up and really ordering and pre-ordering basically every album that we talked about over the course of this interview. They're all just incredible. Again, I rarely tell people to order things before they've heard them, but I feel supremely confident about all of these. And there are links down in the description where you can find all these albums and also other interviews, podcasts, reviews, whatnot surrounding them. As always, thanks so much for listening. It's your ongoing support that really makes this worthwhile. Much like Malcolm was saying, this is a labor of love. It means so much to me to see the comments and the reactions and just all the positive vibes getting circled around this podcast and people talking about all the bands they've discovered and how much they appreciate just discovering new music on a daily basis. So if you found some particular pleasure out of listening, please do comment and let us know. I read all of them, and it means the world to me. And of course, once again, if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, CastBox, BitChute, please subscribe there. And then also go over to our YouTube and subscribe there as well, because in addition to these podcasts, we've got reviews, we've got longer form interviews, meme reviews, reactions I've been starting to post to various articles. Lots of content there. Hopefully, mostly stuff you enjoy and not something that's just going to make you cringe. But go there, check it out. Also follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Vero, and Minds.com. You can find us on Bandcamp as well. We have a mailing list you can subscribe to if you really want to make sure that you don't miss anything. I send out an email every single week with new reviews and the latest podcast and various other content. And finally, please consider supporting us over at Patreon. I put in a tremendous amount of work and really more and more as I continue to expand into all these new avenues. It takes more and more for me to do that. And I will continue to do that